Hi, welcome to Straight Talk. We want to welcome all of our new viewers that are watching and let you know that our job here at Straight Talk is to educate you about the opiate epidemic that's going on, about hope and recovery, and about what people need to do to take care of themselves or someone that they care about. And we have a topic each show to really help you help someone else or yourself. And we got a great show tonight, one of my own passions, which is fitness and exercise, and the role it plays, and nutrition as well, the role it plays in recovery, in helping addicts get clean. Because we know that when an addict's using, they literally forget to take care of themselves physically and mentally. And so we're joined by a wonderful team of experts here, and that's Joshua Buchbinder and Elyse Buchbinder, who are certified nutrition coaches, who owns a company called Be Strong Athletics. You guys are doing a lot of stuff, but I know this means a lot to you working with addicts.
Absolutely.
So, we've got plenty of time, and I want people to understand the importance of all the things that you do to help addicts, as well as what we can do if you're not an addict,
Sure.
About good health and nutrition, because obviously obesity is a huge problem in this country. Diabetes is growing all the time, and I know your job is to protect us. So, Josh, tell us about what you're doing with Be Strong Athletics, and then also talk about, we'll get into what you're doing with a lot of the drug programs.
Sure. So we founded Be Strong Athletics under the principle of essentially trying to help people with everyday lives. It's not a vanity-based program, right? We're here trying to make real changes in everyday people's lives on a daily basis. I've worked in fitness for, over 20 years now. Elyse has worked in the fitness industry for over a decade herself. And it's just been something that's been a real passion for ours. And 2 years ago, almost exactly, we decided to step out on our own and carve out our own path.
And how did you decide? Do you want to add to that, Elyse? You're our partner.
This was really Josh's baby, as he asked me to be a part of it, and obviously I gladly accepted. But we knew that we could make a bigger difference working for ourselves and for other corporate companies, and we've been really satisfied with what we've been able to do so far.
I mean, do you find in general, again, the statistics are out there about diabetes and about overweight and obesity in this generation. Do you find that to be true? I mean, do you find, you're in the business and
Sure.
you train people. Are you finding that people are just not taking care of themselves?
So 100%. Unfortunately, and I look at it, and if you want to look at it in terms of addiction, for instance, I think that we as human beings turn for comfort wherever we can find it. And one of the easiest ways to do that is in food. And so we have a lot of really unhealthy choices in our lives that we can reach to simply, and they make us feel good quick. And this isn't people who necessarily have the disease of addiction or alcoholism, but it's just all of us. It's human nature. And as a result, we want to do things that feel good over and over again. And it's nobody's fault particularly, it's how our brains are wired, right? We get a reward from doing something that feels good or tastes good, and your brain says, oh, that's great, let's do it again. And we repeat that over and over and over again. And so that's the same behavior that happens with food, right? What happens with taking naps excessively, right? Can happen with drugs and alcohol. And so the overlay there for us is really, really obvious. And so that's something that, I think we're both passionate about, is trying to help people change their reward system.
And I guess that's the big question is, whether it's whether it's an addict or a workaholic or an alcoholic or a gambler or anyone that has a obsessive compulsive addiction, how do you get somebody to stop that and become healthy?
Yeah, so we find that we have better success when we really explain kind of the physiology behind why your eating causes you to feel the way that you do. And we have plenty of clients who are not in recovery and who are not addicts and alcoholics, and a lot of them still struggle with I can't stop eating this particular food, or at this particular time of day, I find myself wanting this, and it's like Josh said, it's the brain works the same way. You feed it sugar, you feed it all of these things, and your body craves it. So it's explaining to them why they feel, helping them to understand why they feel that way, and then encouraging them, and it's a process, it takes time, and we support them, encourage them over time to make small lasting changes versus changing their diet completely overnight, because we have found that that does not work at all. Just like anything else that you make a huge change in quickly, it very often doesn't last.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about diets. There's a billion diets that are out there, but I'm sure you guys don't believe in those diets.
I don't particularly like the word diet because I think that it gives this sense of you're restricting yourself, right? And it gives this sense of limiting calories or limiting foods. And I think that it's just very individualized. Everybody needs something different. And I don't think that there's one magical diet that fixes everything. And I think that there are some people who can't tolerate certain things, and yes, then they should cut them out of their diet. But for the majority of people, we really try to focus on portion control, and quality of foods. And we find that when people are eating smaller portions and eating healthier selections and eating on a regular basis and maintaining their blood sugar levels, then they generally have better success with long-term weight loss, if that's their goal.
Right, but to change their behavior.
Well, there are some behaviors that need to be changed right away, right? So if we talk in terms of recovery, you've got to work on getting the clients and patients clean and sober, right? And so that's primary to everything else. So like that's a behavior that has to be 180 degrees, and then everything else can be progressive thereafter, if that makes any sense.
But in your general clientele, who aren't necessarily addicts, but when you talk about not liking the word diet, I think that's really, really good. I agree with you because you're teaching a lifestyle, a different way to live, a different way to eat, a different way to look at all that, and be able to get them to not feel, because it makes you feel guilty.
Yes.
Oh, I was on a diet, but I fell off the wagon, and I gained 10 pounds, and that leads to it. But changing the lifestyle of people that want to change.
Right.
And
so
I guess
we will oftentimes ask our clients, like, what do you think personally is the hardest area of your diet? And if they say, I drink 5 regular sodas a day, we say, perfect, let's start there, cut them out. So we try to allow them to tell us like what they are struggling with the most, and we kind of go after whatever the biggest problem is and the hardest thing is for them. Because some things need to change pretty quickly. If you're eating 100 grams of sugar a day, or you're eating 4,000 calories, like things like that can't just be slowly changed. Those need to be changed quickly. But food selection and type of food and portion control are all things that you can slowly change versus cutting all of the foods that they like out overnight, or stuff like that. So.
And when we come back, I'm assuming that's the same for exercise, that you have to start small and begin to do it. So we're going to take a quick break. I want you guys to stay. This is good stuff. We're talking with Joshua and Elyse Buchbinder. We're talking about fitness, health, nutrition, especially in those who are in recovery from drug addiction, alcoholism, when they've worn their bodies down. So we're going to learn more about that, the work they're doing in treatment centers, awesome stuff. So stay with us. We're coming right back to Straight Talk.
Why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Having trouble finding Connor's middle school? Would you like directions?
No, why is Connor having trouble focusing in school?
Finding lowest airfare to Istanbul.
No, I'm tired of fighting with him over homework.
Home, walk, restaurant. Need a review?
No, I need help. He's very smart, but his mind wanders. He's disorganized.
I think I understand.
Oh, good.
French fries. Finding best potatoes.
No!
Russet. Fingerling. Yukon Gold.
Why don't you understand me?
Sorry, I was trying to show how Connor feels every day. Frustrating, isn't it? Redirecting to understood.org.
For the 1 in 5 kids with learning and attention issues, this is what life can feel like. Explore understood.org, a free online resource about learning and attention issues, designed to help your child thrive in school and in life. Understood.org, because understanding is everything.
So they say it's a man's world? Well, I don't see anybody's name on it. While they were out doing their thing, we slowly changed all that. We changed all that. Today, women can do anything men can do. And there's one thing we're even better at.
Hi, welcome back to Straight Talk. We're talking with Josh and Elyse Buchbinder. We're learning about fitness, health, good nutrition, especially if you're in recovery. You might be feeling a little sluggish, you got drugs out of your system, and you just don't have that motivation. But you got to talk to these guys because they'll get you motivated. Anyway, welcome back. Thanks you guys for sticking around. You're doing some work at a treatment center in Maryland, Maryland Addiction Recovery Center. And you're working with people who are in early, middle stages of recovery. Mm-hmm. What's that like? What do you see with that population? You know, kind of like, what does drug addiction do to the body and the mind, other than the things we normally think of, from overdose to that, but what does it do physically to somebody?
So physically, you see a lot of muscular deterioration, you see a lot of gastrointestinal distress, you see a lot of individuals who haven't eaten hardly anything for days, weeks, months on end, people who've been on liquid diets. And unfortunately, that just really starts to disintegrate every organ function of our body over time. One of the other big things that we see is a real lowered pain threshold. We basically, by taking in opiates and alcohol, we are really diminishing our body's understanding of pain and reducing our body's ability to create its own endorphins, our natural pain reducers. And so as a result, we see people who the moment they get sober, everything is like on fire and it's like an exposed nerve, and a little headache. We were just talking about this today, a little headache is a huge migraine, or you know, I stubbed my toe and it's the worst thing in the world. I need an amputation, kind of, you know what I mean? And everything's very dramatic, and it's just bigger than life. But you know, it's a really rewarding experience being with that community and that population, and it's something that's personal for both of us. So.
Do you find that those in early recovery are just kind of lazy and they don't want to do much and feeling sorry for themselves, and you know, what do you mean exercise? I
don't think it's so much that they're lazy. I think that their whole world has been turned upside down. Yeah. You know, they've had this coping mechanism for years. You know, some come in with 15, 20 years, and everything that they've known is taken away, and everything feels overwhelming. And I remember when I got sober, you know, I couldn't handle like emotions. I couldn't handle physical pain. I couldn't handle life on life's terms yet, because I didn't understand how to. It had been completely subdued by alcohol, and I don't think it's laziness. I think it's their bodies are figuring out how to work again, and they really don't know what to do with it. You can't sleep well. You know, you feel everything. You feel every emotion that you haven't felt in years, and you're really just out of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, they got blood running through their veins instead of drugs.
Right.
So that's a new feeling, I guess. So what do you do with them? I mean, obviously, I don't know what you actually do. So what do you do with addicts? And if there's addicts watching or family members of addicts, we know the importance. You've explained that. What do you actually do? What kind of things would you do with someone? So the
vast majority of what we do is in a group structure, and the group structure has been found to be really beneficial, both psychologically as well as physically. So we take everyone through a series of dynamic or functional warm-ups. We don't do any stretching until the end. We want to make sure everybody's warm and limber. And then we go through progressive programming on about 3 to 4 week basis. So everything we do is planned out in advance, and we really try to stick with more of a standard training model versus a workout model. And the difference is that, you know, we are going through from easier to harder, right? So if we're going to start with somebody who's brand new, they're working on stable surfaces with 2 feet versus unstable surfaces with 1 foot. I know you're a workout guy, so that probably makes sense to you, but essentially in the beginning there's no circus tricks, right? We want to make sure that they can push well and pull well, that they can squat, they can lunge, that movement is really, really key. A lot of the patients that we deal with also have pain management that they're going through. And so if we can perfect their movement, then we can actually help reduce a lot of that inflammation and pain that they've been feeling from whatever their injury is.
And what do you do with them?
So I do the same thing. I'm lucky enough I train all of the women, so I just deal with the females in the communities, and you know, and we talk to them and we let them know, you know, that we talk to them about our personal stories, and we talk to them, we explain to them, like we've explained here, why we're doing this. If they understand, you know, how it's related to their recovery and how it's going to help their sobriety, and oh, this makes sense if, you know, if this hormone gets higher and I feel better, or whatever it is that we're explaining, and if they understand that, they really seem to be more bought in and engaged. And we encourage them and we support them and we let them know that we understand that it's rough and that this is a whole new way of life for them, and we promise that it's beneficial, and we work through, you know, we work individually with them as well. If they have something that's going on that they would like to talk about nutrition-wise, you know, I sit down with them and I ask them the same questions that I ask all of our clients, and I let them talk, and I try to listen and try to understand as best as I can what they're going through and what they really want help with, and we do our best to help them. It's largely on a group basis, but we do have the ability, and we're lucky enough to be able to work with them one-on-one as well.
Right, right.
You know, Elyse is being modest, and she also spends a lot of work behind the scenes with some of the nutrition presentations and information that she puts together. And you know, we really, like she said, focus on the why behind the what. Most of us come in, right, in an early sobriety, there's a lot of brain damage that's happened. and that's just a normal, right? And so as a result, we try to explain, because we've had people look us deadpan in the face and say, I'm not doing it, this makes no difference, why should I bother? And
I think you see that in people who aren't in recovery.
Yeah, it's across the board.
It's across the board.
Says that at the beginning of exercise.
Yes.
Yeah, but understanding that comprehensive movement structures where you're doing multiple things at the same time, as well as cardiovascular exercise, actually create something called neurogenesis. And what this is the creation of new brain cells. And it's something that for a long time, science actually didn't think was possible. It was once they're gone, and you can't replace them. And then in the late 90s, the research started showing that we could through cardiovascular exercise, and then we started understanding through complex forms of, so we're not just standing there doing, you know, old school bicep curls, right? But doing things where I have to actually think about them and I have to move different parts of my body at the same time, really does stimulate the brain to actually repair itself.
At the same time, you know. And like you said, as people that just come in, it's a little more basic, and the longer they start, like any other exercise program, the more you do them, the more you want to do, and all that. So that's great. I mean, the whole concept is so important. And we'll take another break. And I want to talk about, you mentioned about the endorphins, what exercise, cardio does for you. And also want to talk about like really a meal plan for people that are out there in recovery.
Yeah.
What do you recommend them eat? Okay, so we got one more segment. I'm so glad you guys are here. This is so important. I think it's really important. Talking with Joshua and Elyse Buchbinder about fitness, exercise, nutrition, especially if you're in recovery. You know, you're lying there and you're feeling, I can't move, I can't do anything. We want you to get up and move. So stay with us. We're coming right back.
Will spend 15 minutes watching online videos like this one.
Brushing for 2 minutes now can save your child from severe tooth pain later. 2 minutes, twice a day. They have the time.
Most party fouls are pretty dumb. But if you decide to drink and drive underage, you could lose your license and your freedom. Underage drinking and driving. The ultimate party foul.
There's one thing you can never have sex without.
It's not something you buy.
Or something you take.
In fact, there's only one way to get it.
It has to be given to you, freely.
It's consent.
Because sex without it isn't sex.
It's rape. Consent.
If you don't get it, you don't get it. It's on us to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Hi, welcome back to Straight Talk. We're talking this show about nutrition, fitness, taking care of yourself, especially when you're in early, mid-stage recovery from addiction. It's really important what happens to you. We've talked about how the body's depleted of all the, nutrients and what it does to the bone structure. And it's hard for people to get moving again. And we're with Joshua and Elyse Buchbinder, who work with addicts, work with treatment centers, and try to get them moving. We've got to get some blood flowing through their system to start with. But Josh, you were talking about the endorphins, which the part that makes us feel good. Mm-hmm. How does exercise make you feel good eventually?
So there's a couple of ways that happens, right? And the endorphins are a part of that, and they are a localized anesthetic or painkiller. And so when we're doing exercise and we start to really work our muscles, that chemical actually releases within the muscle and reduces the amount of pain there. Now, there's some misconceptions about what that does in your brain, and it's not exactly the way people think about it, and it's a really long conversation for that. But essentially what does happen, besides the body's natural processes to reduce pain and create sort of what they call like the runner's high, mm-hmm. right, is we get a flood of amino acids into our brain, and we get our reward centers get lightened up over and over and over again because it starts to feel good. And so what we want to do is we want to actually increase their capacity to do that and increase the frequency that they do that. So we're getting these rewards in our brain. And then our natural feel-good hormones like our serotonin levels, which are drastically depleted from drug and alcohol use, start to raise up naturally. And the nice thing with them raising up from exercise is they don't drop as quickly as they do from the use of drugs and alcohol. When a user or an addict or alcoholic takes in their drug of choice, they get this huge spike of serotonin that happens.
And all they did was snort some white powder. We're asking them to go run a mile.
Right. And then it crashes really hard after that.
And that's when they have that craving. Mm-hmm. And it's a vicious cycle of feeding the craving, feeling the craving, feeding the craving.
Learning to get that mm-hmm. endorphin flow, mm-hmm. that runner's high from exercise is not only healthier for you, but it will last longer.
Yep.
And hopefully you won't have these massive spikes of euphoria and then these massive
put nasty
drops.
Drugs in your body. Mm-hmm. You're just doing it, you're getting that feeling,
mm-hmm.
About feeling good through the endorphins.
Sure.
Now, how does that flip over to nutrition?
So,
Elyse, I mean,
so when
if somebody's watching, they're in early mm-hmm. recovery, and they're hungry or they're mm-hmm. not hungry because they just went through withdrawal.
Right.
And what kind of a diet would you structure people? What kind of foods should they eat?
So my ultimate recommendation is to eat consistently throughout the day. So we have, especially in early recovery, you tend to have those episodes of cravings when your blood sugar is low. So if we're eating 4 to 6 times a day, every 2 to 3 hours, then we're not waiting 8 hours in between meals, which can be easier said than done in early recovery because withdrawal can be really hard. So we recommend a very balanced diet of protein, carbs, fats, vegetables. And what people don't often like to hear, but we don't recommend sugar and caffeine in early recovery because unfortunately, those mimic the drugs. So they light up the same receptor sites in the brain. They give you that same satisfied feeling that you get when you drink or use. And then hours later, you want it again because it's depleted, the receptor sites are open, and it wants the exact same thing. So it very much mimics a craving for drugs and alcohol. And we do our best to encourage people in early recovery and in long-term recovery, to limit sugar and caffeine as much as possible, which is very difficult. But we find that they have much better results when they're eating on a regular basis.
And when you talk about these small meals, I'm
Yes.
assuming you're talking about during the day.
Yes.
Are there any kind of foods like yogurt or fruit? What do you like the best?
So there's a couple of really good foods. So when we come in, our body's depleted of kind of two really important amino acids. One is tryptophan and one is, it's called tyrosine. And there's a couple of foods that kind of feed this. So animal proteins are great. So beef, fish, chicken, all of that stuff. Turkey and foods, spinach, avocados, pineapple, nuts, seeds, legumes, things like that all have these natural amino acids, which is what our body's craving. So I recommend things like that. I really am not super strict on the food type as long as it's a balanced diet of some kind of carb, protein, fat. Yogurt's a great one, especially for breakfast in the morning. A lot of people don't find that they're hungry, and I encourage them to eat something small like that in the morning.
We also always recommend a more whole food concept, trying to avoid things with a lot of words that we can't pronounce. Closer to the earth, the better, right?
Yeah.
And so we want to keep it clean, few ingredients, right? Healthy fats involved, healthy carbohydrates, low in sugar, as Elyse mentioned, and minimal in stimulants throughout the day. I mean, who has, how many people, especially in early recovery, are just drinking plain black coffee?
Right.
They're adding sugar and creamer, which is adding a another level.
And drinking water.
Yeah.
Huge.
Hydration.
Yes.
Especially as you increase your
we try to get everyone to
exercise.
drink about half an ounce per pound of their body weight. So I'm 180 pounds, I should be drinking at least 90 ounces of water a day.
Half your body weight in ounces.
Yeah.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough. Congratulate you on what you're doing. It's certainly an area where we really need help. People need help. And whether you're in a treatment center or you're just out of a treatment center, learning to eat well, exercise, keep it up. Don't stop, even though it's tough, right?
Yeah, it is. It's really hard.
Keep doing it. So
moving
just want to thank you guys,
Thank
congratulate you. Keep it up. More and more programs need to have you there so that it's something to take so you can prevent relapse. Something that they can do to make themselves feel good. So excellent job. Thank you guys so much.
Thanks for having us.
Today on Straight Talk, we're talking about fitness, nutrition, health for those people in recovery. We always like to say, if you know someone who has a problem with alcohol or drugs, or you need some help, pick up the phone, call a treatment center, start that road to recovery, because it does work. I want to thank my guest. Thank you for watching Straight Talk. We'll see you next time.